Unaware the wife he threw out with just $20 was a $200 million heiress. Husband moved his mistress into their rented apartment. What she did when rent was due shocked him. He didn't just ask his wife to leave. He grabbed her suitcase, opened the door of their small rented apartment, shoved it into the hallway, and tossed a crumpled $20 bill at her feet like trash. "Here," he said coldly. "You can start over with that." Behind him, his mistress stood in the shadows, already wearing his wife's robe, already looking at the place like it was hers. He threw his wife out so he could move his mistress into the very apartment the wife had been paying for. The wife he had just discarded was Elena Morgan, a quiet, soft-spoken woman who believed love mattered more than money. She had worked, sacrificed, and paid the rent in secret while her husband, Nathan, bragged about being the man of the house. He called her a burden, a leech, dead weight. He thought throwing her out with $20 and replacing her with his mistress was proof that he had upgraded. He truly believed she had nothing, no savings, no power, no way to fight back. What Nathan never knew was this: the woman he kicked out of that small apartment was not just any wife. Elena was a hidden 200 million heiress, the only daughter of a powerful real estate family. Elena, the only daughter of a powerful real estate family that quietly owned more buildings than Nathan had ever driven past in his life. While he celebrated with his mistress in the very bedroom Elena used to cry in, rent was coming due. Bills were piling up, and soon in a quiet office, a pen would sign a document that changed everything about who really controlled the roof over his head. What Elena did when rent was due would leave Nathan completely shocked. This is not just a story about a husband who betrayed his wife. It's about what happens when the person you threw away is the one holding the keys to your future. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Elena's voice fade back into silence. When you hit that button, you stand with every person underestimated, every partner discarded, and every quiet soul who chose to rise instead of beg. Please subscribe now, and in the comments, tell me where you're watching from. Elena Morgan, 28 years old, jerked upright on the park bench as if waking from a nightmare. Her breath hitched, chest tight, hands trembling, not from fear but from the sudden memory of a door slamming somewhere behind her. A neighbor's door this time, not hers, but the sound carried a sharpness that cut straight into her nerves, the way certain noises do when a heart has been broken more than once. She had come here straight from the property manager's office, where she'd quietly slipped an envelope of cash across the counter and said, as she always did, "Please don't mention this to Nathan. I don't want him feeling pressured." The manager had nodded kindly. Nathan still believed the rent somehow handled itself. People walking by barely noticed her, but if they had looked closely, they would have seen a woman holding her life together by fragile threads. Beautiful in a quiet, unshowy way, dressed simply, hair tied back, eyes carrying a storm of things she refused to speak aloud. She forced herself to exhale, to slow down, to steady her hands. Elena opened her worn sketchbook, the one she used to calm herself, and began sketching a building facade, strong pillars, glass balconies, clean, elegant lines. Anyone watching might assume she was just a hobby sketcher, passing time between shifts. But Elena wasn't just drawing. This was muscle memory, because Elena Morgan wasn't a nobody. She was the only daughter of Alexander Morgan, a powerful real estate magnate whose name alone could bend entire markets. But no one at this park knew that. Not the children running past, not the couple arguing near the fountain, not even her husband. A flash of memory took her, not gentle, not invited. Younger Elena, maybe 20, stood in a massive office made of marble and glass. The air was cold, the kind of cold that smelled like power and expectations. Her father towered behind a heavy desk, silver hair, stern eyes, the type of man who built skyscrapers like Lego pieces. "I don't want that life, Dad," she said, voice shaking but firm. "And what life do you want, Elena?" Alexander Morgan asked. He wasn't yelling. That would have been easier. He was disappointed. Far worse. "I want a life where someone loves me for me," she said, fists clenched. "Not the money, not the name, not what comes with being the Morgan heir." Alexander exhaled slowly, the way a man does when choosing between protecting his daughter and letting her learn heartbreak the hard way. Then hide your inheritance, he said. The words were both blessing and warning. Hide everything until you're sure. But remember, his eyes hardened, holding hers with the weight of a truth he wished wasn't real. People reveal themselves when they think you have nothing. It was the sentence that shaped the next 8 years of Elena's life. The sentence that made her keep her real surname, Morgan, but never explain it. The sentence that led her straight to Nathan Turner, her husband. Nathan, 32, charming smile, confident voice, the kind of man who made others feel smaller without raising his tone. People thought he was ambitious, driven, a natural leader. Elena once thought so too. Back then, he had treated her like a gift, gentle, attentive, endlessly curious about her simple upbringing. A curiosity she mistook for love, not noticing how his questions always circled back to money, background, assets. She had believed she found someone who saw her soul, but in truth, he saw opportunity. She didn't yet want to admit that, not to herself, not out loud. So now here she sat on this quiet bench, pretending she was just another woman with a sketchbook, when in reality she was the quiet shadow of a fortune bigger than Nathan could imagine. She had walked away from it for love. She'd taken a modest job, paid rent in cash, pretended to be average because she wanted something real. And the man she gave everything to would soon throw her out with only $20. A gust of wind snapped a loose page from her sketchbook. Elena reached for it, but someone stepped on the paper before she could grab it. She froze when she looked up. It was Nathan, and he wasn't supposed to be here. He had told her that morning he was stuck at work, handling extra hours. Yet here he was in the middle of the afternoon, at the park, and he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a tall, polished brunette in a fitted blouse, her hand resting lightly on Nathan's arm, as if it had been there many times before. The bright smile on his face wasn't meant for her, and that was the first silent warning of the cracks about to form. Nathan's sudden appearance in front of Elena hit her like a punch to the chest. He wasn't supposed to be here, not today, not now, and certainly not smiling the way he was, wide, bright, almost rehearsed, like the world existed only to please him. But the real shock wasn't Nathan. It was the woman standing beside him, a tall, polished brunette, early 30s, wearing a fitted blouse and expensive perfume that clung to the air with confidence. She wasn't trying to hide her interest in Nathan. She stood close, much too close. Her hand brushed his arm casually, as if testing boundaries she already planned to cross. Elena's pulse spiked. Nathan hadn't noticed her yet, or maybe he had and simply didn't care. The sketch page still lay beneath his shoe. Before she could speak, before her brain could find any sense in the moment, her vision pulled her backward, away from the bench, away from the woman, away from the present, straight into the memory of the day she met him. It had been a warm afternoon at the Community Arts Center, a place Elena volunteered at quietly to stay connected to something simple, honest, and human. The center was a modest building where children painted on paper, taped to walls, laughter bouncing through every room. Elena worked there to feel normal, to feel free from the Morgan Empire, to feel like she could breathe without someone evaluating her worth. Back then, she was 23, gentle, reserved, hopeful. That afternoon, a man walked in holding a box of donated supplies. He pushed the door open with his shoulder, smiling as if he walked into sunlight. His name was Nathan Turner, 27, charming from a distance and dangerously charismatic up close. "Is this where the art donations go?" he asked, lifting the box as if it weighed nothing. Elena remembered how she smiled back, soft, surprised, because few people looked at her with such open warmth. She guided him inside, showing the shelves, introducing him to the children. He watched her interact with them, noticed how she knelt to match their height, how patient she was, how she listened more than she spoke. "You're good with them," he said. "You don't see that often." Those words sank deep, because he said them like they actually meant something. Over the next few weeks, Nathan volunteered more often, not daily, but enough to be noticed. He brought snacks for the kids, asked Elena questions about her artwork, complimented her sketches, laughed at her dry jokes, and looked at her with an attentiveness she mistook for sincerity. Elena thought she was seeing kindness. Nathan thought he was seeing opportunity, but she didn't know that then. The memory softened, transitioning into a slower, quieter moment. Elena recalled a late evening months later when she and Nathan walked through the center after closing. Children's paintings, bright suns, and crooked houses covered the walls. She felt safe there, tucked away from her family name, from expectation, from judgment. Nathan had paused beside her, watching her clean brushes. "You ever think about building a life with someone?" he asked casually. "A life," she repeated, caught off guard. "Yeah," he said with a small smile. "Two people starting from nothing, supporting each other, growing together. I always wanted that." Those words struck her right in the place she tried hardest to protect. A place aching from loneliness. A place tired of being seen as a price tag rather than a person. She didn't tell him she was the heir to a massive real estate fortune. She didn't tell him she had walked away from that world. She didn't tell him she was scared that no one would ever love her without conditions. Instead, she said quietly, "I think that sounds like something I've always wanted too." And Nathan smiled like he had already won something. Now, in the present, on the park bench, Elena blinked back into reality, the shock of seeing Nathan with another woman still burning behind her ribs. Nathan finally looked at her. His smile faltered, only for a second, but she caught it. "Elena," he said, pretending to be surprised. "Hey, I didn't realize you were here." The brunette beside him tilted her head, studying Elena with polite curiosity that felt sharp. "This is Vanessa," Nathan added quickly, almost too quickly. "She's from the office. We were just going over some ideas." Vanessa gave a small, practiced smile. "Hi, I've heard a lot about you." Elena's fingers tightened on her sketchbook. Nathan stepped closer, eyes flicking to the fallen page beneath his shoe. He lifted his foot, picked it up, and glanced at the drawing, a building with familiar luxury lines he couldn't place. "You're out early today," he said. "We, finished up work nearby and decided to walk through the park." But he had told her hours ago he was working late across town. The lie hung between them, thin but visible. Elena forced herself to breathe. "You said you were stuck at the office." Nathan didn't flinch. "Yeah, then plans changed. You know how it is." Vanessa shifted closer to him. "Just a fraction." "Enough." And then Nathan said the sentence that changed everything. "I've been meaning to ask you more about your past, your family. You never talk about them." His tone was soft, too intentional. He added almost casually, "Sometimes I wonder if there's anyone who could help us out a bit with, things being tight." The fear she thought she had buried began to rise again, because this wasn't just curiosity anymore. This was pressure, and standing beside him, hearing her name for the first time in full, Vanessa repeated it quietly as if tasting it. "Elena. Morgan, right?" The questions he asked that day would soon reveal cracks she never expected. Cracks leading straight to the first sign of betrayal. The phone lit up again. It was nearly midnight, and the sudden glow sliced through the dark bedroom like lightning, jolting Elena awake. Nathan, lying beside her, reacted too fast, snatching the phone, rolling his body away, shoulders stiffening in a way that screamed guilt. Elena shot upright, heart pounding. This wasn't normal. This wasn't how a loving husband behaved. And the speed, the panic, the way he clutched the phone as if protecting it from her, it shocked her like a slap. "Who was that?" she asked softly, her voice still thick from sleep. Nathan didn't turn around. "No one," he said quickly. "Work message." But his tone was wrong, too sharp, too rushed. The intensity of the moment hung between them, thick and choking. Then slowly, Elena forced herself to breathe, letting her pulse settle. She lay back down, staring at the ceiling. Inside, her thoughts spiraled. In the weeks after the park incident, things had changed. Subtly at first, then sharply. The texts didn't stop. They increased. Late nights, early mornings. Sometimes he stepped out onto the balcony to answer them, whispering. Sometimes he walked into the bathroom and locked the door. Elena never confronted him with anger. It wasn't her nature. She was gentle, raised to stay composed, to observe before reacting. But she noticed everything. Nathan's new cologne, the shirts he ironed more carefully, the way he lingered in the mirror before leaving the apartment, the way he casually dropped Vanessa's name now and then. Vanessa thinks I should push for a promotion. Vanessa says the office might restructure soon. And, more importantly, the way he hid his phone every time she walked into a room. One night she passed the half-closed door of the guest room and froze. Nathan's voice drifted out in a low whisper, an excited whisper. She'll believe anything. Relax. Everything in Elena's body locked. She'll believe anything. The words were a knife. And the worst part? The tone wasn't annoyed. It wasn't stressed. It was confident. Like he was proud of how easy she was to deceive. She stepped closer without thinking, her breath shallow, feet silent on the carpet. Yeah, he continued, voice lowering. I told you. She doesn't question things. That's why this works. This? What this? Her hand covered her mouth. Her stomach twisted so hard she felt sick. She didn't hear the rest. Her mind was already spinning. Who was he talking to? Why did he need someone to relax? What exactly did he think she believed? She stepped back quietly, but the floor creaked. Nathan stopped talking. Elena, he called out sharply. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She took a deep breath, smoothed her hair, and pretended to have just walked into the hall. Nathan stepped out of the room, phone in hand, face too calm. Everything okay? He asked. She studied him, really studied him, the tension in his jaw, the faint smirk he tried to hide, the way he angled his body so she couldn't see his phone screen. Nathan, she began softly. Is something going on? Going on? He repeated, raising his eyebrows. Elena, what are you talking about? I heard you, she said gently, in the guest room. You said someone would believe anything. Were you talking about me? His expression didn't flicker in guilt. It twisted into irritation. Oh, come on, he snapped. You're twisting things. You're paranoid because you grew up sheltered. He said it like a weapon, a direct stab at the childhood she never talked about. Sheltered? She echoed, stunned. You don't even know much about my childhood. Nathan sighed loudly, shaking his head as if she was the problem. You overthink, he said. It's just how you are. You weren't raised the way the rest of us were. You had things handed to you, people protecting you. You're not used to real-world stress. He didn't know about the inheritance. He didn't know about the empire. But he still used the exact fear she carried inside, that if anyone saw where she came from, they'd never see her again. She swallowed hard. Maybe he didn't mean it that way. Maybe she misunderstood the call. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was overthinking. Her mind began to protect her heart, as it always did. That's not fair, she whispered. Nathan wrapped an arm around her shoulder and kissed her forehead, a gesture that looked loving but felt like a cover-up. You worry too much, he murmured. There's nothing going on. But his hand never relaxed around his phone, and Elena, wanting to believe him, wanting the marriage she dreamed of, convinced herself to let it go. Later that night, when he stepped into the shower, his phone lit up again on the nightstand. A message preview appeared, same name she'd begun to notice beside so many notifications. Vanessa, a heart emoji, and the words, I miss you already. Elena's breath shattered, and before she could decide whether to open it or walk away, the bathroom door handle turned and the door began to open. Behind that door was the first undeniable truth and the beginning of a betrayal she never saw coming. The apartment door clicked shut behind Elena, quiet, soft, barely a sound. But the moment she stepped inside, she froze in place as if she had walked into fire. She wasn't supposed to be home yet. She had swapped shifts with a coworker and left work early, hoping to surprise Nathan with dinner and maybe finally a calm conversation about what had been happening. Instead, there was laughter. A woman's laughter, light, playful, far too comfortable for a work friend. Her heartbeat slammed against her ribs, hard, fast, impossible to ignore. She felt the air thicken around her as she stepped out of her shoes, every nerve on edge. It wasn't the laugh that terrified her. It was the familiarity of it. She had heard that voice before, not once, not twice. In every whispered phone call Nathan had tried to hide from her. Her fingers trembled as she set her keys down. The bathroom door was cracked open. A thin stream of warm light spilled out into the hallway like a spotlight aimed directly at her fears. Elena moved closer, slowly, silently, each step filled with dread she couldn't swallow. The laughter came again, then the sound of soft rustling. She reached the doorway, and what she saw in the mirror's reflection stole the air from her lungs. A woman, early 30s, polished, confident, curves wrapped in a fitted blouse, stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting her collar. Her hair was styled neatly, her lipstick fresh. She looked like she belonged somewhere expensive. The same woman Elena saw with Nathan at the park. The woman who stood too close to him. The woman whose name had flashed on his phone. Vanessa. Vanessa wasn't a stranger. She was the woman who had been texting Nathan late at night. She was the perfume on Nathan's jacket. She was the voice Elena heard behind the guest room door. All the hints, every single one, lined up perfectly now. But Elena didn't cry. Not yet. She stepped back before Vanessa could see her. She pressed a hand to her chest, breathing hard, her mind whirling. She wanted a reason. Any reason. That wasn't betrayal. She got none. Seconds later, footsteps approached. Nathan rounded the corner with a towel thrown over his shoulder, hair damp, expression relaxed. When he saw Elena, he jerked to a stop, surprised, guilty, and annoyed all at once. "Elena, what are you doing home early?" he asked, voice tightening. She opened her mouth, her voice barely a whisper. "I heard someone." Before she could say more, Vanessa stepped out of the bathroom, smiling, unaware Elena was there until she lifted her gaze. The moment their eyes met, the smile dropped. But Nathan reacted first. He rushed to Elena, slipping between her and Vanessa like a barrier, voice deceptively soft. "She's just helping me choose a gift for you," he said quickly, a lie so effortless it made her chest ache. Vanessa blinked, then nodded slowly, clearly following Nathan's lead. But her discomfort, her guilt, her hesitation, they were unmistakable. Elena's mind raced. Why would a woman she barely knew help choose a gift? Why would she be in their home while Elena was at work? Why was her blouse slightly misbuttoned, as if she had dressed in a hurry? Nathan placed a hand on Elena's arm. "You're looking at me like I did something wrong," he said, tone dropping a shade darker. "You always jump to conclusions. It's because of your past, Elena, because of how sheltered you were." He used her greatest insecurity as a shield again. Elena swallowed hard. She didn't want to break. Not here. Not now. Not in front of a stranger. So she forced herself to nod, pretending to accept it, pretending his story made sense, pretending she didn't see the truth staring right at her. "Okay," she whispered. Nathan exhaled in relief. Vanessa, eyes darting nervously, murmured, "I should go," and hurried out, collecting her bag from the couch like she already knew she had crossed a line. Elena stood perfectly still, but as she turned away, her vision blurred. A single tear fell, quiet, soft, unseen by Nathan, and the pain behind it was deeper than she expected. Later that night, after Nathan fell asleep, Elena lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her mind replayed the scene over and over until her heart felt bruised. She wasn't angry yet, not fully. She was confused, hurt, lost inside questions she wasn't ready to answer. But the image of Vanessa adjusting her blouse in their bathroom mirrored itself inside her mind like a warning she could no longer ignore. Sniffling softly, Elena turned her head toward Nathan. He slept peacefully beside her. She wondered how long he had been lying to her, how long she had been trying to hold together something already breaking. And then, Nathan's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Same name, same heart emoji. Vanessa. Elena blinked through her tears, because this time, the message preview didn't say "I miss you already." It said, did she believe the story? Elena would soon learn just how far Nathan was willing to go, and how easily he planned to. The shouting hit Elena like a physical blow. "Nathan, please, can we just talk?" she managed, stepping into the living room with trembling hands. "Talk?" Nathan snapped, spinning around so fast she flinched. His eyes were wild, frustrated, angry in a way she had never seen. "I'm done talking, Elena." His voice filled the apartment, bouncing off the walls, sharp enough to make her heart jump. The intensity in the room was suffocating. Days had passed since she'd found Vanessa in their bathroom. She had waited, hoping he would come clean on his own. Instead, he became colder, shorter, more irritable. Now the storm had finally broken open. Nathan pointed at a pile of envelopes on the table. Unpaid bills. A red, past due stamp glared from one of them. "You're holding me back," he shouted. "You don't support me. You don't contribute. You drag me down." Elena stared at him, stunned. It felt like her brain couldn't process the words fast enough. She worked, she cleaned, she budgeted, she paid rent without him knowing exactly how much it cost. Telling the manager never to mention it to Nathan. She bought groceries. She covered his missed payments. She supported him quietly, lovingly, thinking they were a team. "Nathan, I pay for most of these," she whispered, voice cracking. "You know I do. I've been covering the rent for months." He scoffed, actually scoffed. "See? There it is. Acting like you're some hero. You can't even help me properly. You can't give me the life I deserve." The life he deserved? The words were a knife. She swallowed, tears burning behind her eyes. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "I've done everything I could. I gave you everything I had." He laughed bitterly. "Everything? You barely have anything, Elena. You think your little job is enough? You think your sad childhood excuses everything?" She froze. This wasn't frustration. This was cruelty. Cold, sharp, intentional. She took a breath, desperate to save something, anything of the marriage she built with hope and blind love. "Nathan," she said quietly, "if something is going on, if there's someone else." His expression didn't flicker. Not guilt, not shame, just annoyance. Then he reached into his pocket. Elena didn't know what to expect. Maybe his phone, maybe another lie. But what he pulled out was worse. A crumpled, wrinkled $20 bill. He threw it at her feet. "There," he said. "That's enough for you to start over somewhere else." Elena's breath shattered. She stared at the $20 lying by her shoes. It might as well have been a slap across the face. "That's all I owe you," Nathan added. "For everything." Her heart broke so loudly inside her chest she was sure the room could hear it. How can you say that?" she whispered. "I'm your wife." "Not anymore," he said flatly. And then, footsteps behind him. Elena lifted her eyes, slowly, painfully. Vanessa walked out of the bedroom, wearing Elena's robe, her robe, the robe Nathan gifted her on their first anniversary. The sight hit Elena harder than the $20 ever could. Vanessa froze when she saw Elena, but Nathan didn't bother pretending anymore. He stepped closer to Vanessa, stood beside her, chose her openly. Elena's legs felt weak. She reached for the suitcase near the door, not because she planned to leave, but because she needed something to hold on to. It had been half-packed for days, ever since she'd started to wonder if love should hurt this much. "You promised we'd build a life together," she whispered. Her voice was so small it barely carried. Nathan didn't blink. "I found someone who actually wants to," he said. Vanessa looked away, suddenly uneasy, but she said nothing. Silence filled the room like thick smoke. Elena slowly bent down and picked up the crumpled $20. Her hands shook, her breath shook, her heart shook. She looked at Nathan one more time, but he was already turning away, already choosing a different future, a different woman, a different life. Elena stood there with her suitcase, the bill limp in her hand, feeling like the world she had built had just collapsed in front of her. Finally, she whispered, broken, "I loved you." Nathan didn't even answer. Elena opened the apartment door, stepped out into the hallway, and closed it behind her with shaking hands. The corridor was quiet, cold, too bright. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then on autopilot, she pulled out her phone with numb fingers and called the only person she trusted to open a door without asking questions, Lily. But before she took her first step away, she heard something from inside the apartment, a sentence, a whisper, barely audible, Nathan's voice. "Now that she's gone, you can move in tomorrow." Elena froze, heart stopping, breath caught in her throat. What she would learn next would break her even more and push her toward a truth she had spent years running from. Elena burst into Lily's apartment like someone running from a fire. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't even breathing right. She was simply breaking, quietly, silently, falling apart in a way only a person who has lost everything in one night can understand. Lily, her longtime friend from the community art center, rushed from the kitchen the second she saw her. Lily was short, soft-spoken, with kind eyes that always seemed to search a person's soul before their face. She'd seen Elena tired before, stressed before, but never like this. "Elena, what happened?" Lily whispered. Elena didn't answer. She couldn't. She simply walked inside, dragging the half-packed suitcase behind her. The wheels scraped the floor, a harsh sound that filled the small apartment with a tension Lily had never felt from Elena before. "Elena, talk to me," Lily pleaded, but Elena collapsed onto the sofa instead, curling into herself like someone trying to disappear. Her hands still clutched the crumpled $20 Nathan had thrown at her. She didn't even realize she still held it. Intensity slowly drained into numbness. The kind that doesn't let you cry. The kind that makes you stare at nothing for too long. Lily sat beside her, rubbing her back gently. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out," she said softly. Hours passed. The sky outside darkened. The apartment grew quiet. Elena lay under a blanket on the sofa, eyes open but empty. She wasn't sleeping. She was thinking, replaying every moment of the past few months. Every lie, every late-night message, every time Nathan hid his phone, every whisper behind closed doors, every time she'd chosen silence instead of confrontation. Every piece connected now, forming the truth she had refused to see. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Once, twice, 3 times. Lily reached for it, glanced at the screen, and frowned. "It's a number saved as Mr. Carter." "Who is that?" she asked. Elena blinked slowly. My family's lawyer," she murmured. Lily hesitated. "Why is he calling you this late? Did something happen?" Elena didn't answer. Because she already knew. Mr. Carter never called without reason. He was the only person from her old world who still tried to check on her. When she left the Morgan world, she told him she needed distance. He had respected that, but he'd also promised her father he would keep a quiet eye on her from afar. The buzzing continued until the phone went silent. Elena turned her face away. She didn't want her past. She didn't want her name. She didn't want the reminder that she had traded a fortune for a man who saw her as worthless. The silence didn't last long. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a different notification. Lily picked it up, eyes widening. "Elena, you need to see this." Elena didn't move. Lily brought the phone to her anyway. On the screen was a new social media post. Nathan Turner, public. A picture of him and Vanessa, laughing, holding each other, standing inside Elena's old apartment. Her couch, her curtains, her life. The caption, "Finally free, no more dead weight, no more leeching." The words punched Elena straight in the chest. "Leeching," she whispered, voice cracking. "I paid everything." Lily hugged her tightly, anger rising in her voice. "You never deserved this," Lily said. "You chose him over everything. Why would he do this to you?" The question burned because the answer hurt too much. Elena pulled away slightly, staring at her suitcase, at her sketchbook peeking from it. As she shifted it, a small white envelope slipped out, old, worn, yellowing around the edges. Her breath caught. It was familiar. She picked it up with trembling fingers. It was a letter from her father, written years ago, before she left home. She unfolded it slowly. "If you ever need help, no questions asked. Just call." Elena's eyes blurred. Lily saw her hands shaking. "Elena, why don't you call him? Why did you cut your family off? You haven't spoken to them in years." Elena swallowed hard. "Because I chose Nathan," she whispered. "I chose him over everything. And I thought he chose me too." The truth tasted bitter. Lily squeezed her hand. "Then maybe it's time," she said gently, "to choose yourself again." Elena stared at the letter, her father's writing pulling her back into a world she ran from, a world she denied, a world she pretended didn't exist. The Morgan world, the world of power, of wealth, of inheritance, of protection, a world Nathan never knew she came from, a world she desperately needed now. Her numbness cracked, Just slightly, enough for determination to slip through. Elena picked up her phone with steady hands. Lily watched her, whispering, "Are you sure?" Elena nodded. She dialed the number printed at the bottom of the letter. The phone rang once, twice. Then a deep, familiar voice answered. "Miss Elena, we've been waiting for your call." Her throat tightened. "Mr. Carter, I need help." On the other end of the line, Mr. Carter didn't hesitate. "Then it's time to come home, Miss Morgan. Your father left everything ready for this moment." The town car stopped so suddenly that Elena's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't even realized her hands were gripping the leather seat until her knuckles turned white. Her body tensed with the same fear she felt the night Nathan threw her out. The intensity hit her so fast she had to close her eyes and inhale deeply just to keep from shaking. The driver, sent by Mr. Carter, opened the door. "Elena," he said softly, "he's waiting inside." She nodded once, her legs unsteady as she stepped onto the pavement. The building before her was tall, quiet, and private. No sign, no name, nothing to reveal the power hidden inside. It was the kind of place only people with influence knew existed. She entered through glass doors that slid open silently, the air inside cool and still. Her heart thudded in her chest as she walked down the long hallway, her footsteps echoing faintly. She wasn't ready for this. She wasn't ready to face the world she abandoned. She wasn't ready to admit how wrong she had been about Nathan. But she had no choice now. A woman led her into a private office with floor-to-ceiling windows. At the desk sat Mr. Carter, her family lawyer for more than 20 years. He stood when she entered. "Elena," he said gently, "it's been a long time." Mr. Carter was in his late 50s, sharp-eyed, calm, and carrying the kind of quiet authority that made people lower their voices around him. He had watched her grow up, watched her run away, and, apparently, continued watching from a distance, as her father had asked. She forced a faint smile. "I'm sorry I didn't call sooner." "You called at the right time," he replied, motioning for her to sit. "Your father always believed you would return when you truly needed help." The mention of her father softened her, but also twisted something deep in her chest. Mr. Carter opened a thick leather file on his desk. "Elena, before we continue, I need you to see something." He slid a stack of documents toward her, legal papers, certificates, property deeds, account statements. She stared at them, confused at first, until she saw her name printed on nearly every page. Elena A. Morgan, beneficiary, primary heir, estimated estate value, $200,000. Her breath hitched. "Is this real?" she whispered. Mr. Carter folded his hands. "Your father passed away 3 years ago," he said gently. "He left everything to you. He trusted you to live your own life, but he also trusted that, when the time came, you would take responsibility for what was yours." Her fingers shook as she touched the edges of the documents. $200 million. She had walked away from all of it. She had lived in a small rented apartment with Nathan, while the world she left behind held enough power to change entire lives. "But I didn't want this," she whispered, her voice weak. "I didn't want to be that girl." Mr. Carter nodded gently. "I know. You weren't wrong to want love," he said. "You only chose the wrong man." The truth stung harder than anything Nathan ever said. She looked down, unable to meet his eyes. "Mr. Carter, I let him treat me like nothing. He called me a leech. He said I held him back." Her voice cracked. "All this time, I was the one paying the rent, the bills, everything." He nodded sadly. "Yes, our accounting department manages your trust accounts. We saw the rent and utilities coming from your income, not his. Your father asked us not to interfere unless you were in danger. Nathan never contributed. He let you carry the entire household." Elena closed her eyes, tears finally forming, but they weren't tears of heartbreak. They were tears of clarity. She had been blind. She had been loyal. She had been loving. And she had been deceived. Slowly, she sat straighter in her chair. Mr. Carter watched her carefully, recognizing the shift in her posture, the quiet strength returning to her expression. "Elena," he said, "your father left instructions for me. If you ever returned, I was to guide you through your holdings and help you take full control. Your first responsibility is understanding what you own. He reached into his desk drawer. This, he said, sliding something across the table, is your real estate portfolio. Elena blinked in confusion. Real estate? He nodded. Your family owns several properties across the region. Apartment buildings, commercial rentals, private estates. Some are held in companies your father controlled. By accepting the inheritance, you become the controlling beneficiary. She hesitated before opening the folder. Then she saw it, page after page of properties, addresses, details. But the last entry caught her eye. Her heart nearly stopped. Mr. Carter tapped the page gently. One of these buildings, he said quietly, may interest you. The address was familiar, too familiar. It was the address of the apartment building she had just been thrown out of. Nathan's building, their old home. A slow, cold, tingling dread moved through her spine. She looked up at Mr. Carter, shaken. This is his building? It was part of your father's portfolio, he corrected calmly. On paper, it belongs to one of his holding companies. But now that the estate is being executed, you are the legal heir to that company. He paused. And you can choose whether to step forward as the active owner or let someone else manage it in your name. The room felt suddenly still, very still. A new kind of power, quiet, controlled, dangerous, rose inside her like a second heartbeat. And in that moment, Elena realized something. Nathan had no idea whose roof he was standing under. Mr. Carter leaned back, his expression unreadable. There is one more step you can take, if you wish. We can move that building into a private trust under your direct control. Legally and publicly, you would become his landlord. The pen nearly cracked between Elena's fingers. That was how hard she was gripping it as she stared down at the final page of the documents spread across Mr. Carter's polished desk. Her heart pounded harder with every second, the intensity of the moment squeezing her chest. She wasn't signing for revenge. Not yet. She was signing because, for the first time in years, she was taking back power she had abandoned. Elena, Mr. Carter said quietly, you're sure you want to move this building into your personal trust? It will mean your name, or your company's name, appears in the management records. The tenant will feel the change. She nodded slowly. I don't want him to see my full name yet, she said, but I don't want to hide behind my fear anymore either. He understood. His eyes were calm, serious. This trust, he said, tapping the papers, will list you as acting owner and trustee under the company name we created for you. The building has always been part of your inheritance, but tonight, we are making you the visible landlord. Management will be updated. Notices will be sent. By morning, his lease will fall under your authority. The intensity hung in the room like a held breath. Elena inhaled deeply, then signed. A single stroke, a single moment, a single decision that shifted everything. When the pen left the page, something inside her changed. For the first time since Nathan threw her out, she didn't feel helpless. She didn't feel small. She didn't feel like the discarded woman with only $20 in her hand. She felt steady. Her father had always told her, your power is quiet, use it wisely. She finally understood what that meant. Mr. Carter gathered the papers and locked them in a secure case. The trust will assume active ownership in a few hours, he explained. The property manager will receive instructions immediately. Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, you decide what happens next. Elena nodded, her voice soft. I don't want to hurt him. I just don't want him to hurt me again. Mr. Carter studied her face. You don't need to act out of anger, he said gently. Truth and consequences have a way of revealing themselves. His words stayed with her as she walked back to the waiting car. Outside, dusk settled. Streetlights flickered on. The world looked peaceful, almost too peaceful for the storm she carried inside. But she wasn't breaking anymore. She was rebuilding, quietly, carefully, powerfully. Meanwhile, inside the apartment she once called home, chaos was brewing. Nathan slammed a drawer shut. Where is the cash I had here? He growled, pacing the living room. Vanessa, now fully moved in, wearing one of Elena's old sweaters, rolled her eyes dramatically. Maybe you spent it, she snapped. Everything in this place is cheap, Nathan. Even the drawers jam. Nathan whipped around, annoyed. Nothing in this apartment is my fault. Rent is due and I need to make a payment. Vanessa crossed her arms. Then pay it. I can't, he barked. My boss cut my hours, and the bonus I was promised got delayed. And I thought, he stopped, frustration tightening his jaw. I thought she left some money around. Vanessa stepped closer, anger rising. So what now? You said we'd be fine. You said she barely paid anything anyway. Nathan waved her off. Relax. The old manager liked Elena. I'll just tell him I'm having a rough month. He always gave her extra time. He'll let it slide. Vanessa scoffed under her breath. People only liked her because she acted all innocent. Nathan nodded without shame. Exactly. She made people feel sorry for her. It bought us time. His arrogance filled the room like thick smoke. If Elena had heard him, her heart would have broken all over again. But she wasn't the same woman he threw out, and he was about to find that out. As they continued arguing, a faint rustling sound came from the hallway. Vanessa heard it first. What was that? Nathan shrugged. Probably neighbors. A moment later, something slid under the front door. A crisp, formal envelope. Its white edge peeked across the floor like a warning. Vanessa's eyes widened. Nathan, what is that? He frowned, walked over, and bent to pick it up. Her voice trembled. Is that an eviction notice? Nathan tore the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. His eyes skimmed the first few lines, and his face drained of all color. What does it say? Vanessa whispered, stepping closer. Nathan swallowed hard. It's from the new active owner of the building, he said slowly. It says the lease is in arrears. We have 72 hours to pay everything we owe, or management will begin termination. Vanessa gasped. New owner? Who? Nathan shook his head, disbelief tightening his voice. I don't know. It lists a property trust name. No person listed. His hands trembled slightly. For the first time, Nathan looked worried. Really worried. Across the city, sitting quietly in the town car, Elena stared at the lights outside. She wasn't smiling. She was thinking, planning, becoming someone Nathan never believed she could be. In the stillness of the car, her phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Carter. There's one more document I'm sending to the property manager. It carries your company name. He'll see it. Tomorrow would change everything. Nathan ripped open the new envelope with the arrogance of a man who believed the world still bent around him. What now? He muttered, already annoyed, already convinced it was something he could talk his way out of. He'd ignored the first warning, telling Vanessa, they always threaten. They never do anything. He still believed he could charm or bully his way through. But the moment his eyes landed on the letterhead, his breath caught, his hand froze in the air, his face drained of all color. The intensity of the shock hit him so hard that Vanessa noticed immediately. Nathan? She asked, stepping closer. What's wrong? He didn't answer. The sound in the room changed. It became tight, sharp, almost hollow, like the air was holding still, waiting for him to speak. Nathan swallowed once, eyes locked on the top of the page. Printed boldly, Elena A. Morgan Property Group acting owner and trustee. Vanessa frowned. Who's that? Another manager? Nathan's lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Finally, in a whisper, Morgan. The words slipped from his mouth like fear. He took a small step back, gripping the letter harder as if trying to crush the truth out of it. No, he murmured. No, that can't be her. It can't. Vanessa looked confused. What are you talking about? Who is Morgan? Nathan stared at the page like it could somehow change if he blinked enough times. Morgan, as in Morgan Industries, he finally choked out. Her last name was Morgan. Vanessa's confusion slowly shifted into panic. Wait, Morgan Industries? The Morgan family? The ones with money, Nathan snapped. Old money, massive money. Vanessa's mouth dropped open. You're saying Elena, your Elena, was one of them? Nathan paced, hands shaking. Flash. A memory hit him. Elena refusing to walk into an expensive store, saying softly, I don't need anything from here. Flash. The first time he asked about her parents, and she avoided the question, voice trembling as she changed the subject. Flash. The elegant ring she wore during their engagement. Tiny diamonds so perfect he assumed it was fake because she couldn't afford more. She always hid it under a glove in winter. Flash. Her sketchbook filled with drawings of luxury buildings, elaborate angles, styles she shouldn't have known for someone poor. Flash. The calls she always rejected from Mr. Carter. He remembered the name now. Flash. The day he moved in with her, she told him rent was handled. He never saw a landlord's name on any notice. He never asked. Elena wasn't poor. Elena wasn't weak. Elena wasn't dependent. She was a Morgan, and he had thrown her out with $20. Nathan felt his throat close. His smugness, everything he built on his false confidence, shattered like glass. She hid everything from me, he whispered, voice shaking with a mix of disbelief and terror. Vanessa blinked rapidly. So, she's the new active owner of the building? Your old apartment building? Nathan pressed a hand to his forehead. Yes, he said. She owns the company that controls this place. Vanessa staggered backward. Nathan, if she owns this building, then we're not just late on rent, he said, voice breaking. We're late to her. Silence crashed into the room. For the first time ever, Nathan wasn't arrogant. He wasn't smug. He wasn't calm. He was scared, desperate, shaken to his core. He bolted for the door and ran down the hallway with Vanessa behind him. His heart pounded as he reached the elevator, punching the buttons repeatedly like force would make it move faster. When it finally opened, he rushed inside and stabbed the lobby button. The ride felt painfully slow. Every second stretched. Every breath felt heavy. Every thought screamed, "What have I done?" When the doors finally slid open, he hurried toward the front desk, nearly tripping over himself. The new manager, a calm, older man in a crisp suit, looked up from his clipboard. His name tag read, Mr. Hayes. Nathan slammed the letter on the counter. There's been a mistake, he said quickly. A huge one. I need to talk to the owner. Right now. Mr. Hayes studied him with an unreadable expression. No mistake, he said. The owner's company finalized control of the building early this morning. Nathan leaned in closer, desperate. Then tell me who it is, he demanded. I need to speak to them. Mr. Hayes didn't blink. You will, he said calmly. Nathan's chest tightened. When? He pressed. The manager's eyes flicked toward the entrance doors, where the sound of approaching footsteps echoed. The owner, he said, is arriving in person for a site visit and final notice. Nathan slowly turned around, his heart thundering, toward the glass doors sliding open, toward the figure stepping inside. The familiar silhouette in the doorway would end his illusions forever. The lobby doors slid open with a sharp hiss, so sudden, so commanding, that every head in the room lifted at once. Nathan spun toward the entrance, breath catching, heartbeat slamming violently in his chest. And there she was, Elena. Not the Elena he threw out. Not the Elena who cried on doorsteps. Not the Elena who walked away with only $20 in her hand. This Elena stood tall, her hair pulled back neatly, her clothes elegant but simple. Quiet wealth, quiet confidence. Her posture straight, calm, steady like a woman who no longer feared anyone's opinion. A woman reborn. Nathan stumbled forward. Elena, honey, please, listen. His voice cracked. His hands shook. His entire world felt suddenly fragile. Elena didn't flinch. She simply looked at him with steady eyes, eyes that once adored him, now simply understood him. Mr. Hayes, the building manager, stepped respectfully aside, recognizing her authority instantly. He inclined his head slightly. Ms. Morgan, he said, welcome. Vanessa, who had crept down behind Nathan to watch the scene unfold, stopped in her tracks. Panic rushed over her face. She whispered into her phone, voice trembling. Can someone pick me up right now? She already knew. This was the end of them. This was the end of her security, her plans, her illusion. Elena walked forward slowly, every movement controlled, every step deliberate. She barely looked at Vanessa, just long enough for the mistress to feel the sting of shame. Nathan reached out as if to touch Elena's arm. She stepped back. The rejection cut him deeper than he expected. Elena, please, he begged. I made mistakes. I know I did, but we can fix things. I, I didn't know who you were. She spoke calmly. That was the point, Nathan. Her voice wasn't cold. It wasn't angry. It was simply done. He swallowed, desperate. Just give me a chance. I didn't mean what I said. I was under stress. Vanessa, she meant nothing. Behind him, Vanessa instantly snapped. Really? But even she knew it didn't matter anymore. Nathan ignored her. He focused only on Elena, the woman he now realized he needed more than breath. Elena, he pleaded, I didn't know you were… She lifted a hand, stopping him. I wasn't asking you to stay because of money, she said softly. I wanted you because I believed we were building something real. Nathan looked shattered. But you weren't, she continued. Not even a little. His knees buckled slightly as she reached into her bag and pulled out a clean envelope. She held it out. He stared. What is that? He whispered. Divorce papers, she said simply. Already signed. I've taken care of the part that depends on me. All that's left is your signature. Nathan's breath collapsed inside him. He looked at the envelope like it burned to touch. No, please, Elena. Behind him, Mr. Hayes cleared his throat and walked over to the bulletin board. He pinned up a document with a firm, final motion. A final notice to vacate within 24 hours, issued under the terms of their lease for repeated non-payment and ignored written warnings. Nathan turned around slowly, horror spreading across his face as his eyes locked onto the paper. His name, Vanessa's name, the apartment number, the deadline. He staggered back toward Elena, desperate, broken. Elena, please, don't let them kick me out. You can fix this. You're the owner. She met his gaze with painful honesty. I am, she said, and that's why I won't fix it. Nathan shook, his voice cracking. I'll change. I promise. I'll be better. Please, don't do this to me. Elena took a breath, a soft, human breath. I didn't do this, she replied gently. You did. Her words landed quietly. Not cruel, not vengeful, just true. Nathan dropped to his knees right there in the lobby, tears forming, hands clasped together. Elena, please. But she was no longer his to beg. She turned toward the elevator. Vanessa slipped away toward the door, already gone, already abandoning him, proof of the life he had chosen. The elevator doors opened. Elena stepped inside. For a single moment, she looked at Nathan, not with anger, but with calm, final distance. The doors slid closed, his broken reflection shrinking into the metal until it disappeared completely. As the elevator rose, Elena exhaled slowly. Some people only learn your value when you stop giving them discounts. The elevator dinged softly. Her new beginning had arrived. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.